Honourable Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I do not intend to be very long this afternoon, primarily for the reason, Madam Speaker, is that the response from the other side has been very much overwhelming in respect of their ignorance about the budget itself. Madam Speaker, I remember as a student at Maris Brothers High School, some of us who were engaged in public speaking or when we had discussions about various topics, the brothers who actually had a very good ethos and indeed trained us very well, used to tell us that when you are debating a particular subject or topic, if somebody starts personalizing matters, if somebody starts going off the topic, if somebody starts bringing in ethnic and religious vilification, then you know that you have won. Then you know you have won, because they have nothing else to say on the subject matter. Madam Speaker, and that is precisely what has happened. That is precisely what has happened today, Madam Speaker. And in fact, since yesterday. That's precisely what has happened, Madam Speaker. Of course, Madam Speaker, I do not know what the ethos was at RKS and QBS, and maybe even at Tumbua. We, of course, have a few black sheep from Maris too. It's probably on the other side. But, Madam Speaker, you know, Madam Speaker, before I go into the actual, some of the statistics pertaining to the budget and the figures that were read out, and in particular some of the anomalies that I think that need to be cleared up, Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank Honourable Randondro for her comment about acknowledging the fact that we're increasing subsidies to outer island, to subsidize outer island fares. I can tell also that Fiji Link has reduced the air flight from to Vanuatu from $282 to $213. Of course, it will go down by another 6% from 1 January, and there's also a one-way ticket to Vanuatu, Honourable Randondro. That's one-way ticket. Madam Speaker, I also like to acknowledge another Randondro for his comments regarding the accountants, and I completely agree with him. And in fact, that's what we are working on. We've had some discussions with some of the accountants. We do need to have an independent body that will assess complaints regarding accountants and indeed various tax agents, which is very, very critical. I'd like to also clarify another point. Honourable Tiko Tha talked about there not being any pork in the farewell for the former Honourable His Excellency the President. Honourable Matri Tumbua, whose people had actually done the ceremony, confirmed with us that in fact there was pork in it. But Madam Speaker, this is the level of debate we have in the budget. This is the level of debate we have in the budget. And unfortunately, the whole entire 2 days has been replete with these kind of shenanigans. Madam Speaker, let me just say one thing, because religion is very quickly flaunted by the other side. We, on this side of the house, including from there, we don't wear religion on our sleeve. Just because somebody may say Amen loudly or yell out something loudly does not mean, if they don't do it, does not mean they're people of God. There's only one thing I like to say about religion, Madam Speaker, is that we all in this house believe in God. And God believes that all human beings are equal. We are all God's children, Madam Speaker. We are all God's children. It should not be used, not be proselytized to get a point across to score political points. Nor should it be used as a means to threaten people with violence. Let me get on to the actual budget debate itself, Madam Speaker. One other point about the civil service. Honourable Vande would know about things like absenteeism in the civil service and about standards, Madam Speaker. If they knew, and the public of Fiji have complained about the civil service, not just now, but in the past. And there is a concerted effort to improve the services. Honourable Leader of NFP seemed to forget the events of 1987. 14 May, 25 September, it created mayhem. Mayhem in the civil service. Many people left, but he fails to ignore that. He said, oh, the structures were kept in place. Madam Speaker, the point is that the civil service needs to be improved. The civil service needs to be modernized, and it needs to be responsive to a modern society. We have comments made by the Honourable Gavoka talking about in 2000, when the conference, ACP conference, moved to Benin, somebody said, oh, Fiji, better infrastructure. That's 15 years ago. Why are we comparing Fiji with Benin? Let's compare Fiji with some other country that's of comparable ranking. But this goes to show they live in the past. The people of Fiji don't want the infrastructure of 15 years ago. They want the infrastructure of today. They are saying that they'll take money from FRA and Water Authority of Fiji and give it to make it free university. So what do? Do we tell the people of Nambawalu Draketi, you can't have your road? Do we tell the people in Buddha Bay, you can't have your road in Dakandrove? Do we tell the people in Sawaniseri and Naitasiri, you can't have the new road? Do we tell the people in Valley Road in Singatoka, even though you're the vegetable and fruit basket of Fiji, you can't have your Tahsil Road? Do we tell the people in Lomawai, Vunindolo, in Tailevu, in Nanrunga, that you can't have new bridges? Do we tell the people in Rewa, you can't have reticulated water system? Is that what they're saying, Madam Speaker? Because you do need to, Madam Speaker, invest that type of money to be able to get the infrastructure to the people of Fiji, because for generations we've been behind infrastructure. I completely agree with Honorable Bande. We need to improve the jetties. We need to get all those jetties and the wharfs and the bridges out. Of course, and it's being done. There are 200 bridges that have been identified as about to fail or going to fail. We need to fix those up. It stops people from accessing markets. Madam Speaker, the point is this. In respecting, Madam Speaker, the figures. Madam Speaker, I think I got called traitor.
Just move on. Let's not,
Madam Speaker, the other point I wanted to make. They're going on about this increased spending to the military, but I'm very concerned about the debate we're going to have, because if you add, Madam Speaker, Head 19 and Head 49, which they have done, if you add Head 19 and 49, the total budget spend, if you add those two, 2015 compared to 2016, has actually reduced by $3.7 million. Even though we've given $6 million, an increase of $6 million in allowances to our peacekeepers. They're not serving in Afghanistan. They're serving in Golan Heights. They're serving in Lebanon. They're serving in Sinai. We are the only blue helmets in Iraq. On one hand, they talk about curtailing terrorism. On the other hand, they say, where are we going to all these countries? What do they want? Do they know what they want? Madam Speaker, let me get back to some very basics. The other side needs to have a better understanding of debt matrix. Because, Madam Speaker, when you incur deficit, nominal debt will increase. To ascertain the sustainability of your debt position, you need to compare the GDP. You need to compare it with GDP. Government is strongly poised to achieve a 45% debt to GDP target in the medium term. When you borrow to build, Madam Speaker, as we continuously said, you are building assets. If you borrow to spend on operational costs, then you are having a party. We are not having a party. We are building, Madam Speaker. We are borrowing to build. We are building roads. We are building bridges. We are bringing assets, Madam Speaker, building airports. Madam Speaker, unlike the previous governments who were borrowing to also pay for operational expenses, the other side stated the total debt increased from $3.7 billion to an estimated $4.4 billion. What the Honourable Member failed to state that this increase is over a 4-year period, from 2012 to September 2015. They obviously don't understand the difference between flows and stocks. Let me explain that. Debt is a stock figure, Madam Speaker. Debt servicing, which is principal interest payments, is a flow figure. A sensible economist will compare revenue relative to debt servicing. Honourable Prasad's assertion that every $3 of government's revenue, $1 of debt servicing is in fact a misrepresentation of the real outlook. In 2014, $465 million or 19.6% of total revenue accounted for debt servicing, which equates to debt servicing to revenue of 5:1. Perhaps he needs to brush up on his understanding of debt dynamics and the fundamental debt matrices. For the information of the Honourable Members, Madam Speaker, debt servicing stood at 26.5% of total revenue in 2005. 26.5%. So there has been a relative decline in terms of debt servicing as a share of revenue, Madam Speaker. A decline, Madam Speaker, in the share of revenue. government obviously, Madam Speaker, has been prudent in its borrowing. On the point that he raises, Madam Speaker, about overseas borrowing, this needs to be put into perspective. He obviously has a short-term memory. I had highlighted to this Honourable House in August that government has put in place a strategy of domestic to foreign mix of 70 to 30, plus or minus 5. This is specifically designed to safeguard against foreign exchange volatilities, Madam Speaker, and we remain steadfast in that mix, even though with the $200 million bond raising, US, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are currently at the moment being offered lots of loans, but we've been very prudent. World Bank, IMF, ADB, but we have been very prudent in our borrowing, and we only borrow to build. We only borrow to build, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, even these loans that we are getting, Madam Speaker, range, the interest rate ranges from less than 1% to 3%. Also, from a liability management perspective, external project loans have a tenure of 15 to 25 years. Out of $1.382 billion external debt as at 30 September 2015, 837.75 or 61% foreign borrowings were accessed at very concessional rates, Madam Speaker. The successful flotation of the US $200 million bond at 6.625%, Madam Speaker, is a testimony of the confidence and reliance international investors have on the current administration. It had fetched the lowest interest rate ever for Fiji, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, over the last 5 years, government has been recording operating savings. This basically means, as I've highlighted, and I know some members said the other side when Honourable Minister of Education was saying this year, oh, credit, or dinau. Madam Speaker, the operational cost is not paid for by borrowing money. We are generating enough revenue to pay for operational costs. We are only borrowing money to build. They need to understand the basics. So essentially, Madam Speaker, we are not borrowing to pay for salaries, utility bills. Government revenue, Madam Speaker, in 2006, government revenue was $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion, 2006. In 2014, government revenue was $2.37 billion. An increase of 70%. An increase of 70%, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, essentially what we have now is the government savings, which is excess of operating revenue over operating expenditure has increased from $27 million in 2006 to $573 million, Madam Speaker. $573 million. Madam Speaker, and I'll tell you why. Because in 2006, the previous government, the operating to capital expenditure mix was 85:15. In other words, 85% of the money they spent was spent on operating it, not building. Building was only 15%. Madam Speaker, now the expenditure mix is 65:35 in 2014. And next year, the mix is 60:40, Madam Speaker. The mix is 60:40. Madam Speaker, the other side cannot deny that capital investment adds to the productive capacity of the economy, which is evident in the sustained economic growth we've seen in the last 5 years. When you build better roads and bridges, when you get people quickly to markets, when they're able to essentially, Madam Speaker, have greater efficiency in the transportation sector, there's a level of confidence people build. People go into those other areas. The people of Neta City can bring their goods a lot quicker to supermarkets. They gain confidence. They want to develop their land, Madam Speaker. They don't understand that. Madam Speaker, they need to get their facts right. They need to get their facts right, Madam Speaker, that over the last 5 years, the health and education budgets have increased substantially. They talk about contingent liabilities. The assertion that contingent liabilities to the tune of $2.4 billion is a real exposure is utter lie. It's a lie. I'll tell you why. Out of the $2.5 billion, Madam Speaker, out of the $2.5 billion, $1.73 billion, Madam Speaker, $1.73 billion or 69%. 69% relates to the guarantee of FNPM members' funds. 69% relates to FNPM members' funds. In fact, the explicit liability is $772 million. over the last 5 years, there has been no guarantee calls signifying that the guarantee given by government is done in a well-managed and risk-conscious manner, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, FNPF finances are in a very strong position and a robust position, thanks to the reforms initiated by the government. It's won already 2 international awards. They have already won 2 international awards by independent body, but these people don't recognize that at all. It does not fit in with their political agenda. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prasad, the Honorable Prasad talked about slip. He said, oh, we got, increased slip. We did not increase slip. We basically, Madam Speaker, included apartments in the definition of project within slip. He needs to read that. We have not taken away slip. We have said that there needs to be a restriction on slip. We have said, Madam Speaker, that older hotels cannot get that. We have cut back on the standard allowance, Madam Speaker. But new hotels, Madam Speaker, can get slip. But it needs to be limited, Madam Speaker. It needs to be limited. We are focusing on health. We are focusing on housing, Madam Speaker. And that's what we'll continue to do, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think it's an insult. I think it's an insult when the other side says, oh, the low-income people don't need anything either than flour, rice, oil, kerosene, powder, milk, tin, and tin fish. It's an insult to them. It's an insult to them. They think they don't need clothes, they don't need hardware, they don't need a house. They think they don't need sugar, they don't need salt, they don't need bread, biscuits, onion, garlic, potatoes, fruits and vegetables, dal, curry powder, noodles, as well as the day-to-day necessities, women's tampons, toothpaste, soap, toilet paper, mosquito coil, steel wool, deodorant, furniture, Madam Speaker. They think that they live on there. What a joke! What a joke! Madam Speaker, I have to tell you one thing. On the Shadow Minister's speech, I laughed the loudest and the most. It was entertainment plus. Entertainment plus, Madam Speaker. It was entertainment. Loved it. But Madam Speaker, unfortunately, like a Greek tragedy, it is actually a comical tragedy. It's a comical tragedy, Madam Speaker. They came along, they said last year the budget was boring. This year they say we try to pull a hat out of everything, it's deceptive. They can't even get that right. They can't even get that right, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, yesterday I had the fortunate ability, Madam Speaker, I was fortunate enough yesterday that I was in Kavanangasau at a school of 63 students and all the parents were there. All the parents were there. No matter how much of a gravelly voice comes from the other side, it's not going to deter us from the fact. Madam Speaker, Kavanangasau, the ordinary people said to me, they spoke to me in Fiji Hindi, I'm not going to say it here because I stick to the rules and I speak in English. Madam Speaker, I'll translate. And they said to us, it looks like the opposition don't know what they're talking about. And they said to me, and then the guy said to me, are they deliberately doing it or do they don't know? That's what they said to me. In fact, Madam Speaker, I rescued the opposition. I said, look, maybe they need some time to digest it and then they'll get to know, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the reality is, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, your sources are flawed, my friend. Madam Speaker, the point is this. This budget, Madam Speaker, is a people's budget. This budget, Madam Speaker, is a forward-looking budget, Madam Speaker. This budget, Madam Speaker, has been assessed over a period of 18 months. If they were clever enough, some of the papers, some of the questions that were asked by this side of the House, we were setting the platform. But they were so busy trying to poke fire at us at every small thing, they forgot to look at the big picture. We are here to look at the big picture, Madam Speaker. That's why FijiFirst is responsive to the needs of everyday Fijians, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, therefore, I'd just like to end on one very simple note which kind of exemplifies what the opposition represents. They talk to us and they say, you must have more accountability. Money has been spent without any proper controls. And then when we put things under R, they say, why are you putting under R? That's precisely what R does. That's precisely what R does. R does that if the Minister for Agriculture is given $5 million to build a plant in Kawanangasao, we check whether they have spent the money properly. The next payment then comes, the Minister for Finance then approves, Madam Speaker. That's what happens. They need to refer to the estimates that explains what R is. Madam Speaker, I recommend this budget to this Honourable Parliament.